Alumnus of the Department of Communications Public Relations program, far more years than I care to count. And I'm also a member, I guess a charter member of the Department of Communications Alumni Advisory Board. And you're here tonight for the first of what the advisory board hopes will be a series of events that we sort of conceptualized. And tonight's topic is social media, business and career uses of the same. My job is to introduce your moderator tonight, and then she will in turn introduce our panelists. But what I'd like to do for starters is to thank our friends at Discovery Communications. Chris Finnegan is here. He's also a fellow member of the advisory board, and with Discovery, and a couple of the folks up front with Discovery, and also Spectrum for their participation. And I think, as everybody knows, we are recording this, and this will be available, will be streamed at a later date. But we appreciate you coming, hearing the program live tonight. Your moderator tonight is Dr. Brooke Liu, who is an assistant professor here at the Department of Communications. Dr. Liu has been here, I guess, since about mid-2009. Her research primarily examines how government organizations manage communication during crises and during crisis and non-crisis situations. She's affiliated with the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism, or START. In recent years, she has served as public affairs volunteer for the American Red Cross for both the Arlington, Virginia, and Chicago chapters, as well as research consultant for the Red Cross's national headquarters here in the Washington, D.C. area. As part of her work at START, she's currently leading a $1.3 million DHS-funded project that assesses the effects and the effectiveness of counterterrorism interventions. She also provides research support as an independent consultant to government agencies, and most recently focusing on social media campaigns. She is the author of 4 book chapters, a bunch of journal articles, and she has a PhD from the University of North Carolina. We won't hold that against Brooke, since the basketball season has really just begun. So, Dr. Liu, take it away.
Thanks. So as Steve said, I'm going to introduce our panelists, but first I want to remind you that you are welcome to live tweet the event. We do have one designated live, I guess Twitter, I don't know what the noun is for that. But if you want it, the hashtag is UMD, all caps, great, it's right here, COMM chat. Or you can feel free to retweet what Lance will be tweeting from our department's Twitter feed, or later on you can tweet how great the event was. But we welcome the interaction. I saw lots of you have smartphones, so put them to use. After I introduce the panelists, they're going to talk for about 5 minutes on their experiences with social media and the workplace, and then we're going to open up to your questions. So I hope a lot of you brought questions. We want to make this as interactive in the true spirit of social media. So I'm going to start with introducing Anthony LaFaus, who is the Director of Digital Strategy at Spectrum. Anthony is a digital media professional grounded in traditional public relations practices. He graduated from American University in Washington, D.C. with a degree in public communication and literature. And we will not hold that against you. In his role as Director, Digital Strategy, Anthony brings the latest fully integrated communication strategies to Spectrum's clients, incorporating a well-rounded mix of public relations, media relations, and marketing technologies. Anthony has overseen a variety of online and traditional marketing programs for a range of clients, from restaurants to medical service providers. He sees new media as a unique set of tools that provide organizations with exciting methods to connect directly with their audiences. Anthony has worked with a variety of clients, including nonprofits, government contractors, and digital media companies. Thank you for joining us tonight, Anthony. Next, we have Kate Delamonaco, who is a social lead for TLC and Science Channel at Discovery Communications. Kate began her career in digital media at AOL Music in New York City with a digital strategy internship. Following her graduation from Gettysburg College, Kate joined social media strategy firm Electric Artists, where she worked on campaigns for a range of clients, including Food Network, USA Network, and History Channel, as well as American Express and Invisalign. In her role at Discovery Communications, Kate has worked with Discovery Channel, Science Channel, and TLC. Kate works with an internal social media team to create campaigns that engage, inspire, and connect fans with the Discovery Communications family. Kate is also a freelance writer in her spare time and has been published in Cosmopolitan and Washington Life magazine. Thanks for joining us, Kate. and one of her team members here is also as well. Maya Cutlass-Gates is a social media lead for Investigation Discovery, Military Channel, and Velocity at Discovery Communications. She's a social media specialist who continues to leverage social media support for her business objectives. A communication studies and psychology graduate of the University of Michigan, Maya immediately broke into public relations and communications industry in 2007. For the next 3 years, she works as a senior account executive for MSNL Worldwide, a leading global communications firm offering expert knowledge in public relations, direct marketing, real-time communications, and of course, social media. In the spring of 2010, Maya began her current role as a social media specialist for Discovery Communications. She works primarily on crime and investigation discovery, combat on the Military Channel, and cars on Velocity. She also recently added Curiosity on the Discovery Channel to her roster. While not at work, you might find her exploring local farmers markets, checking out new area restaurants, and watching, of course, Michigan football, just like my husband. So thank you all for joining us tonight. We're going to start with Anthony, who will give us his 5 minutes or less thoughts on tonight's topic in social media.
Hello, everybody. As was said, my title is the Director of Digital Strategy, so I work to create digital programs for traditional clients. We have Fortune 50 companies, our main client being Procter & Gamble, and we do online campaigns for them on over 20 brands that they have across the globe, both nationally and internationally. And when I work to do a digital media program, I have to take a different look because I work in the healthcare industry. So I have regulations and lack of regulations. If anyone knows anything about healthcare, the FDA has not put out regulations regarding social media and what we are and are not allowed to do. So I have to try to juggle what's going on and what people say to figure out what my clients can actually do. We run a variety of different types of campaigns, from patient engagement programs where we're actually managing programs to get patients to talk to doctors or the hospitals about certain programs. We do crisis issues management using social media, which is a very, very interesting way to look at doing social media, where we're able to listen to problems before they happen. So if people are talking about an issue in their area, we can pick them up on things like Twitter, Facebook, and things like that. I also manage several social media programs for biotech companies around the country, giving them a voice and a personality online. I have a staff of 3 to 4, depending on what projects we're working on. And in our firm, the digital department's slightly different because every other member of our firm works on a team. So you're assigned to a certain brand of Procter & Gamble or a certain hospital in a certain area. The digital folks, we jump from team to team, and we are on every account. So my billing reports are usually the most interesting because I have to bill almost every client that we have. So that's always a lot of fun. But on a day-to-day basis, I like to say that the digital team solves problems. When our traditional folks come in and say they need to figure out a way to do something, either monitor someone or contact someone or reach out to a bunch of bloggers, we have to come up with solutions for them in a relatively short period of time that fit our clients' needs. So, with budgetary and timeline. So that's what we do. We like to really say that we are, like I said, problem solvers, because we get quite a few of them. It may be coding a website to include a new video, or reaching out to a blogger to get them to cover something that's happening in an event, or some of the more interesting crisis communications things that we do, which include monitoring and report writing.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kate Delmonaco, and thank you for introducing me. I guess if I were to go back only a few years to 2008 when I started working in social media, that feels like a really long time ago, and that's partially because one of the reasons I love social media is it's, ever changing. We have to be really light on our feet and always kind of, up on the newest things. For instance, Google Plus just rolled out brand pages yesterday, and, now we're all abuzz and figuring out, how are we going to get on Google Plus and what are we going to do with that and how are we going to leverage that platform. So I think one of the reasons that I was originally sort of attracted to working in social media was because, it was every day is different. We come to the office and there's always just something new thrown at us, and I enjoy that. Like you said, it's a total problem-solving business. We have kind of, in 2008, the economy kind of fell apart, and I think that media companies and, all companies really are looking to sort of see how can we leverage social media in a way that can, you know, help people engage with our brands, and how can we cut out the middlemen and sort of get to the heart of what we're trying to do. And I think that that's been something that we've been really successful with on our team at Discovery. We now have 47 million Facebook fans, so we're really, you know, trying to figure out not only how do we grow those audiences, but how do we engage with them? How do we, you know, say, okay, we have 47 million fans, what are we going to do with them? How are we going to get them to engage with our programming, with our talent? How are we going to, you know, keep them as fans and keep them as people who love our brands? So there's a lot of challenges, definitely, and, you know, I've seen that. I used to work at an agency, so it was a little different, and I love now working in an internal team because you kind of get the 360 view of how social media will work in a business. You know, when you kind of work in an agency, I felt like we had sort of different goals. You know, we'd have different one-off projects, and, you know, it depends if you have a longer campaign or whatever. But with us now on Discovery, we see how this team, how our social media team works with communications, with marketing, with you know, our commerce brands, our, you know, .com teams, and really how it's this 360 view of how social media can sort of become integrated in a company and really help to advance, you know, what that company is trying to drive. So, yeah, that's good.
Hello, I'm Maya, and on Twitter I'm MayaKG. So if you tag me, we can chat offline on Twitter. But as Kate said, I think similar to her, when I started my career in communications in 2008, you know, Twitter, Facebook, they just weren't what they are now. And I signed up for Twitter simply because I was interested in learning what the medium was. And I think one of the things about being in this area is that there are so many great resources and free resources that are available, you know, in addition to at this university within the DC community. And one of those organizations that I found most helpful was the Social Media Club of DC. We hold monthly events that focus on different topics and different industries, and they're mostly free to attend, and we always encourage, you know, folks to attend. So I actually started gaining my social media background by volunteering for that organization as part of the leadership team, and was able to carry over that skill set that I learned as being involved in that community to my day job at my PR agency, and really help contribute to the social media aspects of PR. So when I joined Discovery, I think I was also just excited about the fact that we get to sit across all these department meetings and engage with all the folks that are involved in making TV happen and entertainment happen, but we get the rare opportunity to engage directly with the fans. So, you know, when you go to our Facebook page, we're interacting with you, and I think that that's something that's our position offers that a lot of other folks don't get the chance to do while working at Discovery. You know, we are actually engaging real time with the people that are watching our programming. So although it's a great privilege, it's also a huge responsibility. So I think one of the things that I've learned as a social media specialist at Discovery is really to just make sure that you're carrying across the message for your brand in an appropriate way, while at the same time being as chatty as possible, you know, to engage, to be that personal connection, but also to make sure that, you know, what you're saying goes along the lines of the tone of our programming and our content. I also think that, you know, as Kate said, one of our challenges is to adapt to a lot of the ever-changing technology that social media offers. So Google Plus is something that our team is looking at, but also, you know, just trying to make sure that we stay on top of all the things that are coming out. One of our biggest challenges is, you know, the intersection between social and TV, and I'm sure you're starting to see it more, especially with entertainment programming, all the opportunities that networks are trying to use to try to engage with fans in real time, whether that's live tweeting or chatting with a personality or gaining extra content with producers of programming, behind the scenes material. This is really an exciting time, I think, to be in social media with entertainment, because you know, we're looking at all the stuff that's coming through at the same time as you all are seeing it. So.
Great, thank you. Now open up to questions from the audience. I know you must have some questions.
And you can give it a big shark. I know you use mine, come on, that's its own part.
You guys all mentioned sort of the idea of engaging your clients and that sort of thing. What type of techniques are you using And are you sort of combining LinkedIn with Twitter and sort of using like a multimedia approach, or is it just you're strictly using Twitter?
I'll go first. I think that each approach on each platform is different, and sometimes we see folks who are broadcasting the same message across multiple platforms. But what we've learned on our team, at least, is that there's different language, there's a different set of terms and things that you used on Twitter versus using on Facebook. The @reply now is becoming more common on all platforms, but I guess I'm not sure if this answers your question, but we do try to look at each platform individually and cultivate the communities as they occur based on the traditions that are already there.
I know from my standpoint, I use social media as tools to get to a certain point. So we don't look at joining Twitter for a client, joining Twitter just to join Twitter. We have to have a goal. So we might look at Twitter to advocate ourselves as a thought leader or to start a conversation with somebody, and I'll identify the proper outlet to then engage people on. One of the things that we engage often on, which people forget about, which is social media, is forums. Especially for a lot of our brand-focused products, they really look at forums as a way to really connect with people, a niche community that is really passionate about a rare disease or a certain type of treatment, and we'll engage them on that forum versus in an open-air environment because they'll be more likely to talk to us on that forum. So we like to identify based upon what the need is and not the outlet.
Yeah, and just to sort of echo those sentiments, I think we've found that there are just different sort of, like on Twitter, there's more immediacy, so people might be like, hey, what time is the show on tonight? And we'll, reply to that. Whereas on Facebook, it might be just more of a general comment or question about, a show we have or, something about our brand. So I think it just sort of varies in terms of, how we're engaging with them. But I think it's just the, bottom line is making sure that it's a two-way conversation and we're just not marketing at people and, that we're listening. And even if, we can't do anything about it or whatever, it's just sort of saying, hey, we hear you and we're listening to what you're saying.
I think it's just one more additional layer to that, as what Kate said. We also not only look at the outlet, but we look at our demographics. So, even across the different networks and projects that we have at Discovery, each different network and each channel has a different audience. So, one might be, higher in male content and, very tech savvy. So, we'll look at what those avenues are where they're participating and sort of find them as well.
Great, thank you. Go to the back and then we'll go back to the front.
A few of us are working on a campaign that specifically targets middle school students, and we'd really like to use social media because it's something that's such a huge part of our lives. So for Kate and Maya, how do you use social media to interact with your younger audiences successfully, if at all?
That's a good question. Are you thinking like you want to do something like, you mean open, like a Facebook or Twitter campaign or?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since you've been in middle school, so we're not really sure what they're using.
Right.
There's been on Twitter, but we use Twitter every day, and it's where we get a lot of our information, so it's effective for us. We don't know if it's effective for them, and if it would be effective for them, how to leverage it.
I mean, I think that your first challenge would probably be somehow doing a little market research and finding out actually if that is what, I don't know if do middle schoolers they kind of teeter on the edge of, whether or not they'd actually be allowed to use Twitter, allowed to use Facebook. Also, I would, maybe question what are their schools involved in? I don't know if schools do private Facebook groups or, maybe other sort of, social networking tools that are more contained, in terms of just being appropriate for children. So I think that would kind of be your best bet maybe to start and see, what are they naturally, using? It's kind of, you want to go to, fish where the fish are, go to what they're doing. And if there is some, interaction with their school. And, I think that social media offers great opportunities for, learning and, getting people together around a cause or whatever. So I think you could definitely go that route, but I would have to say, definitely maybe check on what you think they're using, if that makes any sense. I'm not too familiar with the middle school set.
Well, yeah, I couldn't tell you what specific outlets what you should target for middle school, but I would say that one of the other ways to get a message out to an audience is to target the outlet itself. So taking sort of a page out of the traditional communications playbook and carrying it over to the digital world, are there blogs, are there websites, are there forums that, you know, the middle school audience is attuned to, and then, you know, approaching the editor or, you know, approaching a blogger or a writer who's actively involved in the forum and asking them to help share that message. So really sort of harnessing the leaders of that community and asking to push it out. And then also, I do a small bit of work for Discovery Education, which is a huge side of our business that we don't touch on very often in our role, but is actively growing in social profile. And we work on a project with middle school students, and we focused most of our campaign on Facebook, just because we found that, you know, with the advent of it and with its growth, that's the portal that we've, you know, chosen to dedicate our time to. So I would say it's definitely something that you should consider, but I would also say along those lines, just one of the things that I look for when sharing content on that page is to make sure that it's middle school age appropriate. So, you know, even if we're sharing an article from, it's an environmental focused project, if we share an article from Mother Nature Network and I load up the page and there's an inappropriate ad on the side, you know, because the outlet itself focuses mostly on communicating to adults, I think that's just always something that I make sure that we're addressing, because, you know, language, as you said earlier, language can translate differently from audience to audience, so it's important to keep in mind. Thank you.
I was just gonna ask, besides like Facebook, Twitter, and blogs, like the obvious ones, are there any other social media like sites or like tools that you guys use?
Well, yeah, one of the things that I like to talk about is expanding what we consider social media. We tend to forget that a lot of what we do is a social media format. So I know people say like there's nothing social about email, but email has social capabilities built into it. I spend a lot of times identifying now, because we're getting into already this sort of message overload in these social networks, is niche markets or niche networks to join into. Specifically, if we're looking to, let's say we're looking to communicate between males between the ages of 18 and 35, I would probably actually look to engage on some video game social networks that sort of promote them in there, or other networks that can reduce the amount of chatter that they hear. One of the things you'll notice is like when you look at the Twitter feed from somebody, they'll follow, you know, 2,000 people. You're not going to get a good message to them if they're following 2,000 people. But if you know they spend time on a forum or a certain page on Facebook, you can reach out to them. And I also do a lot of professional outreach for our clients on LinkedIn. It's the long forgotten social network, and it's probably one of the best ways to connect with people. And when you think about doing things like advertising inside that network or creating a program that provides them with professional development information, you can get people actually reaching out to you to find out more through something like LinkedIn. And then there are always smaller social networks that you have to actually go out and identify through an online listening program. Sort of these rare diseases are a huge one that I spend a lot of time in, and you'll have a network that only has 300 people in it, but they're like the right 300 people. So you have to identify each and every network to make sure you can play in that space.
And I would say, I mean, we focus the majority of our time on Facebook and Twitter right now from our team's strategy, but we're also really active on GetGlue, which is, you know, a social check-ins program. So we've done things where we've had crossover episodes where we've had talent from one show come and visit the next, and so we've offered an exclusive check-in sticker on GetGlue where you have both of the talent, you know, from the shows on that badge. So the badging elements of Foursquare carried over essentially to an entertainment side. That's another big platform that we work with.
And one other thing that we often do, is since the FDA watches us, we have to sometimes think creatively, and we have disclosure laws that we have to use whenever we talk about a pharmaceutical or medical procedure. And a lot of times what we find is traditional social networks don't allow for the type of legal disclosure that we have to have. I think Pfizer a week and a half or 3 weeks ago got a letter from the FDA because they were advertising on Google AdWords, and they said that you didn't put a proper disclosure about the side effects of this drug in a Google AdWord, and then Pfizer came back and said, I think it was Pfizer, don't quote me on that. They came back and said, well, we have 160 characters to put into this advertisement. Like, how are we supposed to put a 3-page disclosure in 160 characters? And the FDA basically said that, oh, you shouldn't play in that space. So a lot of times when we look at a social network, if we can't get the legal protection that we need for ourselves and our patient population, we have to look at maybe creating our own sort of social network, which is, it's becoming more and more popular as these networks begin to fragment outside of the bigger ones.
Thank you. Yes.
Knowing that social networks aren't the place for businesses to make a hard sell, how do you navigate the fine line between offering valuable content while still accomplishing the business objectives of your company?
I mean, that's something that I've been really, interested in, again, like, since I kind of started watching social media, crop up, and especially since I started working in it, it was something that I found very, interesting. It was kind of like, where's, and it's what, everyone's always, asking, like, what's the return on investment, where's the money coming from, all of that. And I think that from our perspective, and, I look at it as more of like a branding, marketing versus we're actually, I mean, again, this is different because we're in, we're not a consumer product, we're an entertainment brand, so it's a little different, but, we are trying to, and we always say, like, we don't put out content unless we would click on it. It's kind of like, am I gonna post this on Facebook just to post, or am I gonna, post something really cool that's, some exclusive content or some really cool article that would be of interest to our audience. So it's, having that sort of litmus test and saying, is this just, throwing something out there to throw something out there, or is it actually quality content? And I think, a few years ago it was like, are you in the space? What are you, are you there? Are you on Facebook? Are you on Twitter? And now it's, what are you doing there? And, how are you actively, enhancing your brand profile? And I think people find, there's a certain level of tolerance for getting those, kind of random posts you see going through and you're like, I don't remember liking that brand, and, and then it's like, after the 5th time you see something that you're not interested in, you're like, I'm gonna unlike them, and, and then they lose your attention, and you as, a potential consumer or a potential consumer of, any of our television shows. So I think that that's, something that we've definitely, been working towards, and it is, it is an interesting business. I mean, it's kind of like, the Wild West out there. You're just sort of blazing the trail and seeing, kind of, we do have a lot of freedom to sort of try things and see what works, and, because we can be so nimble and, sort of be like, oh, okay, that YouTube video, nobody liked that, so okay, but it wasn't, some huge extreme cost that, really was a detriment to the company. So I think it's just kind of, definitely making sure that you're not just, noise among everything else, so.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as sort of a gateway point to the best content that we offer. So, I mean, you can visit, discovery.com and see all the stuff on our site, but if you're a fan of a particular show and there's, a playlist of 16 clips, what's the one clip that I can pull that I know that audience will like? Is there a specific character that's in it? Is there a big moment that's revealed? How can we provide the most optimal content that we know that folks are gonna like on the platform, that we're sending messages out to, that will get them there so that they see it. I also think that, as Kate said, like, we look at both things in our side of the business. We like to say there's an art and a science element to the team. So we are on the editorial side, so we're in charge of, drafting the messages, but we also have a huge team on our back end that looks at how things are doing and how things are performing in terms of what we share. So we're thankful enough to have that kind of analysis so that we can sort of shift our strategy in real time. And in addition to that, I think we also take a look at what our fans are saying, what the comments are saying. So if, someone is commenting about a particular character and we know that they love them, we'll ask our video editors, to give us more of that content. So we're just always trying to shift to make sure that everything's optimized.
Now, I live in a slightly different world where I have people that pay my agency to make sure that we are helping move their ideas along. In the 50s, or in the 50s or 60s, a marketing officer at Procter & Gamble wrote a book called The First Moment of Truth. And it's a concept that when somebody's in a store or in an area, the first time that they're introduced to a product or idea, that's the first moment of truth. And you have to win that battle of information to get them to buy your product. About 6 months ago, the CMO of Google wrote a book called the ZMOT, with the zero moment of truth, that in today's day and age, this concept of getting information in front of them when they're at the store or in an area of interest for you, you've already lost the battle, because the modern day consumer has already made a choice based upon a whole plethora of things that they use. So this idea that we can engage on social networks to help create brand ambassadors who advocate for us the good things that our products do, and that message becomes top of message, because what we have found is top tends to rise really nicely in social media. So all of the good things they say about us rise to the top. So we're cultivating relationships with people who share ideas about our products. And then when you think about a mother or a father or somebody in an environment looking for something on their cell phone or sitting in front of a computer, answering a question that they have in their mind, what is the best blank that I can get? What's the best program to watch? What's the best detergent to buy? What is the best something? They're going to start researching that even before they're in the store or at a location. So using social media channels to really create ambassadors who promote our messages to help promote that to the top helps us win that zero moment of truth, that concept that they're going to get to us before we can get to them. And that's sort of this push to pull shift that we've had in communications in the decade or so that I've been working. It used to be I could push message out and I was pretty sure it was going to get in front of the right person, and I can't do that now. I need to provide a resource or arena for a message to be pulled from, so somebody can find my information, decide if they like it or not, and then advocate it for me. I can't tell them to do it, and that entire process is this. It's this odd shift that we've had to make in the past 5 to 6 years that, when I had my first PR book in front of me and I could dictate who I was going to call, to providing media outlets for journalists that they can then pull the information. I can't tell them what to pull anymore. Because when you started in PR, you could control the message a lot easier. And now I have to put that message out there to make sure that every channel, social, traditional, can find the right message.
Yes.
I know you guys talked about this a little bit already, but I'm just wondering, in what ways do you guys evaluate the success of your social media programs? Like, what are the different criteria?
Nope. Well,
Whatever.
I just got after a long one, so I'll wait a moment.
I mean, that's definitely something that varies from, I guess I'll say now where I work, because we work in an internal team structure, so it really depends on sort of what the objectives were, basically. And if sometimes we might have, some event or something that we pulled together, and it's like, the objective might have been to brand, to get our message out there, to have people know that, think of TLC in conjunction with like weddings or whatever. So if that's the, awareness level is the goal, I mean, we would say, how many people shared that item, how many people liked that item, how many people commented on that item. That's still huge. We always look at clicks, comments, shares, likes. And then, in terms of just the greater team, if that's something that, they viewed as a success, sort of depends on, again, the objectives and, was that a marketing move, was that to drive tune in? And, we do lots of different campaigns for sort of, different reasons. We might do a chat and say, hey, we're gonna do a live chat with someone on this show because we really want people to tune in tonight at 10. And then, oh, the ratings came back, we saw that they jumped. That was a success. We're thinking people are more aware of the show. We had a lot of people in the chat, were they thinking about the show and then going and watching the show. So it's really just, depending on the objectives of the campaign, that's sort of what we look at. But it is a little tougher than, again, like selling a consumer product and saying, hey, like, did sales increase or decrease? There's a lot more factors, there's communications messages, marketing messages, all of that. So it is a little more, muddied, but I think it definitely comes down to sort of those key factors.
I think the first step in defining what success is I hate saying it because I hate doing it, but research. You have to sit and figure out what a good baseline of messaging is. I can't say what brand I did this, or what I did this for, but today I spent probably about 4 hours researching medical health fitness apps that got coverage in certain areas based on certain criteria. And we broke that criteria down to say that the reason these apps got coverage was because they were either innovative, they were oriented about the company that made them, or they were somehow satisfying a need. And then we broke down all of those metrics and sort of built out a scale to say if something is successful, it will get 20% in this area because it's innovative. It'll get 4% in this area because it mentions the brand. It'll get 15% because, and break all of that down so when you go to a client and say, this will work because I have this research that says it will, it doesn't sound fun, and it's not the romantic side of doing communications, but it's really, really important to set that baseline of what success is. Because we did a Twibbon campaign for a Resolve National Infertility client of ours that basically promoted our message through Twibbon to a bunch of other people. If you don't know what Twibbon is, it's a great nonprofit tool for getting your message out there. And I did tons of research and found out that the average Twibbon campaign in this area got about 400 reposts. And that would have been success for us. And it's a very niche community. So I did all this research that said that would have been success. So we presented that to the client. Client's like, that would be success if we could reach that many people with this very specific message. We did it. And we got over 3,000 people to repost this Twibbon, and which spread out to all of their other people. So, but if I had just come out and said 3,000 and I only got 400, probably wouldn't have kept the client around much longer. So, I mean, research is the first step in defining what success is.
Yeah, it's very important to have a baseline. I think, one of the things that we use as the barometer on our team is, how does this campaign compare to the last campaign that we did, and do we see growth over time? Again, I've worked on some of the smaller niche networks at Discovery, and from having spent day in, day out on these Facebook pages, I tend to recognize certain folks who are very vocal and very active on the pages. So, seeing that kind of build over time and seeing those faces come back and back again, there's something that we're doing right. So from, both the metric side of, looking at clicks and comments and things like that, but also just, the message side, do we see the same fans? Are they engaged with our content? I think is an important element as well.
Other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Discovery is obviously a publicly traded company, and I'm sure you do a lot of work for your clients that are publicly traded. I guess where I'm going is, with social media in particular, it seems like, speed in the conversation, and being able to actively engage in that becomes important. How do you all handle, permissions, disclosure issues, et cetera? I mean, before you ladies, for example, are allowed to put out a message on a Facebook page for a particular program, et cetera, does someone else above you need to sort of see that, and does a client need to, see some specific messages that you would be putting out from the spectrum? I'm just curious, in general, how do you deal with that issue? In the old days, people used to agonize over a press release for days, and it used to have to go all the way to the CEO and back, et cetera. So you get my point.
Well, we're, as I've kind of said, we're really well aligned within, though we're our social media team is made up of people that all work on the different networks. We're really well aligned with our communications teams, and I mean, that's something that is just imperative. We can't be messaging in any incorrect way, so it's like, we know when the press release about the show is gonna go out, we know when we can say what, for instance, this morning, I don't know if anyone watches 19 Kids and Counting, but Michelle Jugger is having another baby, and so, it was like this whole choreographed, move of like, People's gonna post, and then I can post the People article, but People's gonna hit right after the Today Show, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's something that we're just very, very involved in, because that is something that, our communications teams work so hard to, secure those exclusives and all that, and, we would never want to jeopardize that. And then in terms of tone and all of that too, I mean, that's again very loudly communicated if the show is, sensitive, if there's any issues, we really kind of, again, work really closely with like our marketing and communications teams to just know sort of what the messaging is on something, and, how we can, really, what we can kind of push the boundaries on and what we can't. So I think that that's definitely just kind of being communicative with our teams is the only way to go about that, really.
Yeah, and I think on the other side of things, as much as we're learning to work across all the different multidisciplinary teams that we work with, our teams are also learning to work with us. So, communications, as Kate said, we're very lockstep with that team, but I think they've also, understood understand where we're coming from a social perspective. So I think all of the different branches of Discovery are sort of adapting to work with social and, you know, to understand the need for the immediacy of a response and things of that nature. So it's great because we can reach out to folks and we get a response pretty quickly because they know that, you know, we're communicating in a medium where something is alive for 5 minutes and the next 5 minutes it might be dead.
Well, I have a very fearful position in my life. I approve a lot of the information that goes out in our agency, and I work in an industry where people up the street literally can come in and say, you owe us millions of dollars for, because this tweet told somebody that they could do something. So what we have to do is, when we set a digital program or social media program with one of our clients, we have to first set a very strong social media policy, and then we have to sit down with legal and regulatory and map out what areas we're allowed to actually talk about. And we create like a variance scale that says, if something, the Air Force has a great chart for this too, if something is in a certain realm and says a certain thing, we can respond with this. And then we have to come in, not that I don't want to do this, but it's part of the job. We have to come in with canned tweets and canned messaging on every network we could possibly think of with pre-approved legal message in the event that there's an adverse event that's off-label drug use, all of these types of things, and really set all of that up before we're even allowed to enter the space. And once that's in position, we can enter the space and start dipping our toe in to make sure that we can have a good conversation. But as the process evolves, legal becomes a little bit more friendly with us because they realize we're not just haphazardly throwing information out there or putting things. We're actually thinking about what we're going to say. So they'll tend to give us a little bit more room. But setting that first, this is the policy, what we'll do, using flowcharts. Again, this pains me. I come from a couple of social media startups, and just to say that, and I'm wearing a suit in front of a bunch of lawyers, it just feels weird sometimes. But we have to do that, or they won't even let us play in that space. And to lose that opportunity to talk to consumers about things as important of how do I treat my child's cancer. We work with a lot of oncology clients, and losing that opportunity would be such a horrible thing for us that it's worth the time to go through and set up all this just to play in that space.
But at the end of the day, after you set up all those systems and those protocols, you're not. Don't tell me that you're emailing or faxing to the lawyers a tweet that you want to put out and have to have it approved.
No,
once you again set up those protocols.
Once we've set up that protocol, we know what we can do, and it's. And the policies that we use are very similar to web copy alters that we did 6 years ago. If I came out and I got web copy approved 6 years ago, and I came in and wanted to change things left and right a little bit, I knew I didn't have to go talk to the lawyers for that. But if somebody comes out and says, oh my God, I just took 20 Advil, and I feel great, yeah, we're going to have to go to somebody before we're allowed to respond to that. Not that Advil's applying, that's why I use it as an example. But we know as professionals who've worked because we don't focus only on healthcare, we know what we can and cannot respond to.
Thank you.
When either of you at Discovery when they had their hostage situation?
I was.
And were you tweeting about it?
I think when people ask me about the situation, I sit on the corporate communications floor, so I think that I was privy to a lot of information and, connected, plugged in right with the company as, things were proceeding. And, we were asked to hold off on sending out messages from our public handles, just because, we didn't know where the government was getting information from. We didn't know what sources, from the outside world were coming in. So just like similar to the traditional communications policy that we had for handling that entire situation, where security was the #1 concern for all of our employees, we were also silent until everyone was safe, and then we released a statement across all of our network pages just to let folks know, that everyone in the building was safe, and to thank everyone for their support.
Wise. Other questions? We'll go here and then we'll go to the corner.
Yeah, so, well, thank you guys all for coming out and being here. But do you see any, in the private sector with corporations, do you see any trends versus big companies like Fortune 500 companies doing kind of in-house, Discovery, in-house digital, social media teams versus going to outside firms, corporations? Because, I work for a big company, for example, and it's more of a kind of conservative company, and I noticed a lot of people in our industry are kind of slowly getting into the social media world and resorting to like outside firms as opposed to having their own in-house teams. So have you seen any kind of like trends with that, or?
I mean, I don't know about trends, but I know in my industry and field, you typically have, so if you're a communications manager at a pharmaceutical company, with the exception of something like AstraZeneca or Pfizer, you've probably worked in-house for the past 10 years, 15 years maybe. You've got a long history of being really well connected to the brand, and it's very difficult for you to take that step back. So lots of times with our clients, even if I'm not brought in to do their messaging or actually do a lot of their outreach for them, we are every week on the call with them, giving them counsel on how to do things properly, because they know that it's a space that they need to play in, and they don't have time in their daily lives to get up to speed really quick. I can read something in an hour and share it with 5 to 10 different clients and really brought my value to them when they don't have time to read it themselves because they have to keep things going inside their company. So we see a blend of that really quickly, and then with P&G, the amount of back and forth that we have with them is amazing, and every brand is different. I mean, that's 26, I think, on Fortune. So I mean, they're an amazing company that when you get to that size, every brand almost has their own sort of in and out, but their policies are very structured, so everybody knows what they can do, and they part of it is they want us to know what they can do as well.
And I mean, I don't know from a trend perspective, but I would say from an anecdotal perspective, when people were first sourcing out social media to agencies, a lot of times it was just, hey, okay, we need a Facebook page, just do it, throw it up there. And there's a lot more of a dialogue because I think the folks that are in-house, or work at these companies really know a lot more about social media. They really, have had a chance to engage with social media more. And so, even if there is that company and agency relationship, I think that the companies are the representatives of the companies are more savvy, so there's more of a back and forth dialogue that goes on versus before it was just sort of, here, there's a social media agency here, go ahead and take care of it, so.
Got a question in the back corner.
This is probably a question mostly for Discovery Communications. It seems like a lot of your fans are probably communicating with you a lot during the night. So do you two or do other people, are they responding to Facebook and Twitter 24/7, or how does it work?
You're looking at them.
Yeah, I mean, we actually have a really cute video that we like to show at some point that just can give you like just a quick look at our team. We're just two of a team of about 11 right now. If we could just play it, it's a perfect segue, and then we'll get. But the short answer is yes. I mean, it's true. The time at which fans are most actively engaged with our content is when you're watching TV, which is, the non-traditional work hours. So a lot of us do work non-traditional hours to take those opportunities to engage with fans at the ultimate point.
Does that mean you have to be awake during the non-traditional hours and for Los Angeles too?
We do look at West
Yeah.
Coast. We just take each opportunity and evaluate it as needed, but, some of us are up for West Coast
Yeah.
airings as well as East Coast airings.
It definitely requires a different, I think that it just totally depends probably on what kind of social media you do, but it definitely, I think, I would say it requires, kind of always being in touch and always kind of on your BlackBerry and making sure, there's, what's going on basically, because, social media never sleeps, and neither do we. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, exactly.
This is just to meet our team, little video that one of our team members put together for an awards, an award that we were up for, and this is just a day in the life of our team.
We're honored to be here today at the Digital PR Awards lunch. I invite you to meet our social media family and see what it's like to be a member of our team.
Hello world. At Discovery Communications, it's important for us to show that not all social media teams are created equal.
We work hard to immerse ourselves within our brands to bring you the latest, whether it's on Twitter, Facebook, or the Harvard connection. We pride ourselves on being on the pulse of social media.
In fact, I'm on the pulse of it right now. This is what it looks like. I should probably tweet this.
At Discovery Communications, no day is quite the same. But when it's all said and done, it might be a crazy life.
But it's not mine.
That's our team.
What was the 8?
Kate was 8. Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry. We have a lot of cool memorabilia around in different corners of our building, so we used a lot of it.
We have about 5 minutes left, so definitely plenty of time for another question or two. Yes.
Hi, this is again directed more towards Discovery Communications. Earlier you touched briefly on the intersection between social media and TV, and obviously we just touched on it now. So as far as the real-time conversations that you have, is it just tweeting and chatting, or can you expand a little bit more as to what you do on your specific networks with your audience members when it comes to the media that you're using?
Sure.
Like Twitter and
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have also been doing a lot of chats lately with a lot of our talent. One of, the great things about Discovery is that, all of our talent are real people. They're not actors. So, who they are on TV is who they really are. So, our fans love to sort of connect with them and ask them questions, and just, whether it's like we did one on Monday with Morrow from Cake Boss, and people were asking like, what's his favorite pastry? And then I did one Sunday night with Teresa from this new show Long Island Medium on TLC, and she's a medium, and we were just getting asked all these crazy questions. But she was hilarious and such a good sport, and that's something that I think we have as a great advantage, is we can kind of leverage our talent, and that's something that we really strive to do. And it's, as social media sort of becomes more popular and progresses, they've been much more open to doing things like that, and we facilitate stuff like that, and again, usually in the primetime hours, because that's kind of when people are doing those things and watching the shows and all of that. So and also on Twitter, and I'm trying to think of like what else primetime we do. Facebook chats.
Yeah, check-in,
lots of chats.
Shazam, chats.
Yeah.
But yeah.
One last question. I'm gonna go in the back because he hasn't asked a question yet.
You had said earlier that there's no FDA regulations currently for what you can and can't say on social media. Do you currently see there becoming regulations for that? Like, what are the implications of having?
I do not see, they were supposed to come out with regulations 2.5 years ago. I do not see them doing it anytime soon. They recently revised their web presence FDA rules, which we took as a good sign, but assuming that they have the bandwidth to put out that type of policy is kind of, I don't think it's coming anytime soon. We actually go across the pond. We have international partners, and the UK has a really great policy that we adhere to with a lot of our clients, just to make sure we're adhering to something.
Thank you very much for spending time. This is the first of many alumni and student events, and continue the conversation online, of course.
Yeah, and we would love to stay around and chat with any of you, but I also wanted to take the opportunity to introduce Laura. She's here as a representative of the HR department, and she helps with our intern program. So, please come up to us and chat, but as well, Laura's here if you have questions.
And I would just say that an internship is the best way to figure out what you want to do if you have not yet graduated. It's just so helpful. That's kind of how I started in this industry, and I can't say enough good things about doing an internship, so wherever it might be. But